goodness. Big move Monday. Look out. A way to end the tournament.
Welcome back to another Quad Pod featured interview. Today I'm sitting down with a guy that I got a chance to share the mat with growing up, Mr. Steve Mytych, who's now the assistant coach at Rutgers. Mytych, it's awesome to have you on, man. Appreciate you taking some time and hopping on. Looking forward to chopping it up with you today.
Yeah, no, super pumped. Appreciate you having me on and excited to cover some Rutgers wrestling.
Yeah, man, it's awesome to before we came on, I told you that Goody's one of my favorite guys, and obviously he's got the flavor of the Lehigh Valley with you and as well as Mikey Labs in the room now on staff, and it's
Yep.
just awesome to see guys that we grew up with doing things on that next level, and like I said, you and I had a chance to share the mat and and be in the same practice rooms and around the same people. So, seeing you make it to that next level was always really cool. But like even before we get into like coaching and stuff, I want to talk to you about, family. I know we were supposed to hop on last week and you said today's actually my daughter's birthday. Can we move? And so we moved, but how's the family? How's your daughter doing? How's everything going?
Good. Everything's on the up and up. She had a bad accident in December, and I didn't really get a chance to kind of thank the wrestling community for all their support. So this is a great opportunity to do that. When something happened, we're super competitive on the mat, and when something happens off the mat, it's nice that the wrestling community comes together and supports everybody. And she's doing really well. Surgeries and things like that are finally over, so she's healthy, and she'll be at wrestling practice tonight. So she's in on that. And then my son, he's doing well. Took 2 silvers at the Pan Am Games this year as a 13-year-old, and it's 15U, so he's got 2 more years left in that division. So everything's moving in the right direction.
That's awesome, man. Good to hear that both kids are doing well. Like I said, we grew up in those same wrestling rooms, and I know your kids are in those same wrestling rooms now, and having some of the same influences and stuff. How would you say, the Lehigh Valley has influenced your coaching style? Obviously, you know, back in the day, there was always fireworks coming from that Northampton squad. Would you say that you've really brought that kind of stuff into your coaching style?
Yeah, I think Northampton was always a team aspect, team atmosphere. It wasn't ever about the individual. And I think I was very fortunate to be around like Don Roan. He just always preached that team atmosphere. And now he's at Saucon Valley where my son will go. That's the school district we live in. So
Mhm.
he just started lifting with Coach Roan last week. So he's on the old Don Roan train that I was on. So it's pretty cool how it kind of came all full circle. And I'm fortunate to be, within 45 minutes of Rutgers and still be able to live in Pennsylvania and kind of give my son, the same opportunities I had in District 11. So, yeah, that's kind of a big piece of it all for sure.
Yeah. And speaking of District 11, I know you guys, anytime I have a chance to talk to Goody, he talks about how much you guys recruit in that area, and obviously you guys are out on the recruiting trail right now, but you've brought in, some D11 flavor. How big is it for you to now kind of in a sense give back to the area that gave you all the different characteristics that kind of made you into the wrestler and the coach that you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just the competitive nature of District 11 it's unmatched. I love going to the districts and the regionals. Even the team duels I started popping in on because it's just so competitive how, kids will weigh point 0.2 over a weight class so they can go up 2 weight classes to win the duel for their team, and they play the game. The coin flip is huge. So I just think that these kids are well prepared. Again, a lot of it is about the team aspect. Super excited. We have Tyre Parkins coming in. He did really, really well at the U23s. He was an All-American, knocked off, I believe, a 2-time All-American. So he's kind of headed in the right direction. And Aiden Smith, he's putting some size on. He's getting bigger. That was kind of the hurdle that we had to jump over with him is just kind of putting that size on, and he's buying in, and he's weighing around 130 right now, which is probably the heaviest he's ever been in his life. So it's all good. It's all good. These guys buy in, and that's what we're looking for.
Yeah. You talk about the guys that you have coming in those lower weight classes. Obviously, you lose, a pretty big piece,
Yeah.
And it's a guy that you worked with a ton, I'm sure. When all that kind of transpired, how did it hit you? How were those conversations? And how did the team kind of come around each other when you lose, such big pieces like Dean?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of unfortunate. It's kind of part of NCAA wrestling now at this point. Um, Him and I have had great conversations. There's no hard feelings either way. He was given a massive offer that if it was my son, I would probably tell him, hey, you might want to take this,
Yeah.
So it obviously it stunk to lose him, but that's why we recruit. That's next man up mentality. And I recruited him for a reason, and I have all the confidence in the world, in him to do his job and perform like we all expect.
Yeah. So now, moving forward, last year probably wasn't the year that you guys expected, right? You obviously want more out of your team, not just a couple of individual guys.
Mhm.
How have things been over the summer? How have you seen guys grow? And what has changed, right? Where have you really seen these guys jump levels?
Yeah, I think we took a bunch of guys to U20s, bunch of guys to U23s. I just think we need to wrestle more, compete more. If you just do nothing all summer, you're going to get passed. You're going to get jumped by guys that are training for a competition. It's just the way it is. We have 4 guys going to Worlds. We have Barbosa and Nini going to U20 Worlds. And then Shawver and Mikey Labs, they're going to be going to Senior Worlds.
Yeah.
So we're rallying around those guys right now. We want them to do very well, for themselves and, for the program. And, I think some of the additions, some of the older guys like Lenny Pinto, Hunter Kaka, Remy Cotton, he's got 3 years left. But, those guys have a ton of experience, and they came from great programs, and they're really good dudes, even off the mat. So I just think having some of that leadership, seeing how those guys train in the room, it's really helping us jump levels. And then the new guys that are on campus, our young bucks, that class is really good. We brought in 2 top 10 classes back to back. I think I read somewhere that was the first time Rutgers ever did that. So the staff is busting their butt. We're raising money, and we're hustling, and we're recruiting. We're all over the place, coaching different teams, whether it's 14U teams or other national teams. Coach Pollard, Goody, Labs is competing, but our RTC coach Kyle Kiss, he's been all over the world at this point, just within the last couple months. So we're doing everything. We're hustling, and I think we're going to have a very, very solid team. This is the most depth I've seen since I've been there, just from weight class to weight class. And to be honest, these young guys, it's nice to have someone and push the older guy.
Yeah.
So you're not really safe, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I just think it helps the room. It's super competitive, and honestly, it's really fun. It's a lot of fun to be in our room, and Goodale always brings the juice, whether it's the warm up, the drilling, the live. So it makes it fun to coach and for the guys for sure.
Yeah, I've been in the room, and Goody he certainly brings that energy, right? And you talk about the young guys as well as the vets, and something we're seeing obviously on the senior level is how these kids are coming in so ready, right? These high school kids that are competing on that senior level, and they are so ready. How would you say that, being able to have access to Jordan Burroughs and access to David Taylor, and then obviously access to watching more wrestling, have you seen guys come in so much more ready at a young age because of, social media and then just the aspect of going to all these camps that they're able to go to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing it even with the young kids right now, just because of my son.
Hmm.
That Tulsa circuit, it's so competitive. We go out to the West Coast, they come out to the East Coast, and we wrestle the same tournament at the VAC duels, right? And you're just so like, even, we did a home visit today, and the kid we sat with, they know everybody from California and the Cali
Yeah.
Gold teams. And so I do think there's more opportunities now for kids, just to wrestle a consistent high level schedule, where kind of when I was growing up, I never went to Tulsa. I never kind
Yeah.
of did those things. Um, it wasn't like a huge concern because we could just compete with our guys right here. But I think there's something to, taking a young kid, flying to Tulsa, getting the experience of traveling, flying, making weight. There's no weight allowance, it's real weigh-ins. You have
Hmm.
to make weight. If you don't make weight, you're out of the tournament. So I do think there's those little steps, I think, help these kids develop a little bit more. And then I also think the club scene is huge. And obviously, the guys running those clubs are super high level. So none of these kids have too many bad habits, right? So you're kind of just tweaking them and, scouting opponents and fixing little things, little mistakes that they have. But they're just so far ahead of the game. It's amazing, really, to be honest. And you see it with these kids that are still in high school that are beating senior level guys. That's
Yeah.
unheard of, but they're really good. They're super locked in. And I also think too, a little bit is just committing to the sport. Not playing 3 or 4 sports, all the way to high school. I would say probably like seventh, eighth grade is kind of when to shut it down, maybe pick two,
Hmm.
if size allows. But
Yeah.
sometimes you're just going down to that one, and I think it does make a big difference.
Yeah, for sure. And things are obviously changing on from the youth level on up. And some of the things that you guys as coaches now have to deal with that you didn't have to deal with as a wrestler at Drexel is this transfer portal. And you talked about guys coming in like Lenny Pinto. How have you guys decided to attack all of these things? Like how these changes are happening with NIL, transfer portal, fundraising, right? Like everything is on a heightened scale. And obviously, Rutgers has a huge fan base. You guys have probably one of the biggest fan bases in wrestling where you're
Yep.
packing Jersey Mikes every single time out. Doesn't matter who you're inviting in. But how have you guys decided on attacking these types of things like the transfer portal and NIL and fundraising and all of these kind of twists and turns that coaching is starting to get?
Yeah, I think we sit as a staff very, very. I mean, geez, pretty much every day, right? And we talk about this. Um, we had a kid who wanted to come, 133 pounder, couple time All American, and we said, hey, we have a guy there, right? We have Dylan Shawver, and we believe in that guy. So I think we're a little different in that aspect. We don't want to recruit over guys. Clearly, we'll never stop recruiting, but
Yeah.
I just think it's fair to the kid, right? We brought him in. It's our job to develop him. And I'm not me, but our staff, right? We're not just going to sell our soul, every time just to continue to get a guy who's better and better and better, right? Because at some point that is going to phase out, and recruits are going to eventually catch on to, hey, they're not really as invested in me as I thought they were, right? So I think that's kind of starting to change a little bit right now. The NIL is ever changing. So we get our updates from compliance, and we have monthly meetings, and it seems like it's always changing. So it's almost hard to like get a super good grasp on it, right?
Yeah.
But most of our guys are on NIL. We have a huge fan base that people just love wrestling and love our guys. So pretty much everybody is on it at this point. A lot of it too is you actually have to do something to get that NIL money,
Yeah.
right? So the handouts are over at this point, as much as I'm aware. And now with the new NCAA legislation, obviously it's always changing, but you actually have to do something to get the money, right? So I don't know how they're going to investigate that, or kind of where they're at. I did hear they were going to hire some agents through the government to come in, but again, it's always changing. Um, and in the fundraising piece, we're doing golf outings. We're actually doing a fishing trip coming up. We're going to do we get a boat, we go out with a bunch of donors, right? Have a good time. And so we're always kind of thinking outside the box. I can't spill the beans on this yet, but we are going to be starting up. It's pretty much done. We will be the first NCAA wrestling team to actually have this. I can't exactly say what it is yet, but it will involve fans and donors and things like that for our guys. It's actually pretty unique and pretty cool. But I'm going to wait till that's released from the higher ups on our side. But yeah, you have to think outside the box at this point, right? There's so many pots that you're kind of asking donors to donate into that it kind of turns into donor fatigue, and I kind of understand that, right? You don't want to just keep calling the same person for all these different pots, right? So yeah, you just have to be creative, think outside the box. And I believe Goodale's first dual meet at Rutgers, there was 22 people there, and 18 years later, we're at 8,000, 8,500 strong. So he's done something right, and we're just all trying to pitch in and help the program be as successful as we possibly can.
Yeah. I know, a lot of teams are starting to put out their schedules, at least their conference schedules for the upcoming year. And your guys, you've got your schedule out. I was looking at it earlier. When it comes to preparing a guy for a Big Ten schedule, and even when you're recruiting a guy for, that you're trying to get them to come in and say, listen, a Big Ten schedule is not easy. How are you preparing these guys both mentally and physically, whether you're talking to a recruit or you're talking to one of your guys that's already, on the team? What is it like to prepare them, and what are you telling them, and how are you getting them ready for it?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have to be special to wrestle in the Big Ten. There's no doubt about it. You wrestle Friday, Sunday, right, back to back, and you may have to have a short memory, or you might have to use that momentum to keep rolling into it, right? So I think we do a really good job with our guys preparing them for that. We'll hit a big tournament right before that, whether it's Midlands or, the Scuffle. And then you roll into that Big Ten season. And believe it or not, it matters a lot more than really any of those big tournaments, because it's the seeding at the Big Ten, right? So if you kind of have a lapse and you kind of lose to maybe one or two guys that you shouldn't, you really drop down into that 10, 11, 12, 13 slot, right? So the Big Ten dual season means a lot, for our guys. So, we're always doing our homework. We're always scouting and making tweaks and trying to get these guys to peak. And they buy in. At this point, we're a veteran team, I would say, right now. So these guys know what to expect once that January, February rolls around. So, and then keeping the guys healthy too. That's a big piece. So there's just a lot of dialogue with the staff, the trainers, our strength coach, and we look at every individual and what do they need to be successful, right? So it's not everybody doing the same lift, everybody eating the same meals, right? So it's all broken down individually and specific to each guy. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to get these guys on the mat. It's going to be a good year. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, you guys have some pretty heavy hitters. I'm looking at the Big Ten schedule, and you've got Michigan and Minnesota at home, as well as Purdue and Maryland, and then you take it. You also take trips to Penn State and Northwestern, and Illinois and Michigan State. So you have a good crop coming in the Big Ten. it really is a grind for you guys when you have these top teams. But something else that's different overall with the schedule is the new dual meet tournament that is coming this year. And a lot of people, specifically Goody, he is always clamoring. And I talked to him last year, as well as Nick Costco talked to him too, about that dual meet championship, right? And how do we start to implement this as a regular thing and really truly make it like the way we do the individual tournament, right? And do you feel like changes like that need to be made to maybe bring in some more fans or kind of tap into like that tribalism, right, that comes with college sports? Do you feel like this would be a really good change that is happening with this new not all star, but this new um what is it, dual meet tournament that is happening
Yeah.
this year?
Yeah, I think it's a good change. Obviously, Goody's been pushing it for a long time. It's just the exposure of the sport. Um, Women's volleyball in the Big Ten is doing a phenomenal job thinking
Hmm.
outside the box and really building their brand. Um, how they did it this year, though, I personally don't exactly agree with, just because they took the individual tournament and use the dual selections that way,
Yeah.
not what your actual team is. So for us, we ended the year number 11 last year. I think we should be in it. I don't see why not. We always have a very strong dual team. The individual tournament, it's crazy, right? Anything can happen. That's why everybody loves watching it. It's
Yeah.
just an awesome event, right? But I don't know if it gives you the best teams per se, So, I mean, you could have two national champions and nobody else win a match, and you're within that top 15 range, right? So, but there's changes, right? And having the dual tournament, and then we can make changes as we go, right? It's just the nature of the beast, right? There's always going to be tweaks that we can make of it, but I think it's on the right path, and it'll be a great event. It'll be a great event, and it's just good for the sport, again, building the brand and trying to get fans involved, and yeah, it should be exciting.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it for sure. And hopefully in the next couple of years, we can, kind of tweak that process, right? So that it is rewarding teams for being good teams and not just having some individuals, like you said, right? Having a couple of maybe one national champ or two national champs or something like that. And it gets them kind of propelled into that pool of teams that get pulled in.
Yeah.
Man, I honestly, this has been great. I always love kind of chopping it up with you anytime we get a chance to. Before I let you go, what can we expect from Rutgers wrestling this year? Who are some of the guys on the team that are maybe taking more of a leadership role and really stepping up so far this summer?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's huge that we have these guys competing in the world championships. They're, locked in training, and I think our entire team being a part of that, I think it's going to be beneficial to everybody for training and putting in all this extra time. Again, the young guys coming in, I'm super excited. I even mentioned, Jordan Chapman or Easton Doster. His dad actually played for the Phillies, so that's kind of a little fun fact. That's pretty cool. Um, and then Devin Magro and Parkins and Billy Townsend from Cali. We're just adding and adding and adding, right? So there's going to be some position battles. There's no doubt. These young guys are they want to win. They want to win, and having Shawver and Joey O, they were round of 12 last year. Shawver actually lost first round and then ran it all the way back, beating multiple All-Americans on the backside in a row. So I'm super pumped for him. Again, he's going to Worlds, and he's going to have a heck of a senior season. So obviously having Lenny Pinto around, I love that. I actually picked him up on our way to Indiana when he was on the schoolboy PA team. He didn't have a
Yeah.
ride, so I went, picked him up, and drove him out when he was a young buck. So Barbosa, he'll be in the lineup this year, and he's super tough. He had his 5 matches last year. He wrestled in 5 big matches for us too. So super excited for him. And, Alex Nini, he's wrestling for Italy. He'll be at Worlds too. So, and also Labriola training right now. He's just a workhorse, right? So there is no excuse for anybody on why not to be training hard. So it is nice to have Labs training right now, because those guys are kind of seeing a pro do it, and he truly is a pro. So I'm super pumped, and just for the season as a whole, I think this again is the best team that we've had certainly since I've been here, and especially with the depth. So definitely going to be some position battles, but that's the sport, right? So super pumped, and again, Goody Pollard and Labs, those guys just hustle, and we're recruiting, brought in 2 back-to-back top 10 recruiting classes. So really just excited for the program as a whole right now.
Yeah, man. Yeah, looking forward to it. As I said, I'll be checking in with Goody as the season comes a little bit closer, and getting a nice little preview. Always good to have some sound bites from Goody. He's awesome guy, and huge advocate for the sport, So it's really cool to see, you working with him, and guys that have that explosive type of attitude like you and him do, as I know. But man, no, I love it. I appreciate you hopping on here. Always good to have a full on Lehigh Valley show. So it's always good, man. And we'll certainly be watching out for you guys the entire year, and making sure that we're keeping those updates on how Rutgers is doing here on Quad Pod. But like I said, it's been awesome, man. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you. That was great. Appreciate you.